guys, today we are going to review the movie Fast and Furious 5 that came in 2011. So let's do its full movie review and analysis. Uh, if we talk about basic information, then its movie name is Fast and feature Fast and Furious 5 and it's released in 2011. Its director is Justin Lin and it's an action crime thriller movie and its runtime is 30 minutes and its franchise is Fast and Furious. Its fifth film of Fast and Furious. Fast 5 is the movie that changed the entire Fast and Furious series. Before this film, the franchise focused mainly on street racing. After this movie, it obviously became a global action beast. And let's do its story overview without spoilers. The film begins with Dominique Toretto and Brian O'Connor on the run. They are no longer racers, they are wanted criminals trying to survive outside the law. And if we talk about their escapes leads them to Rio de Janeiro where they play one final job not for speed, not for ego, but for freedom. However, they unknowingly steal something that belongs to one of the most dangerous crime lords in Brazil, Hernan Reyes. This single mistake turns Rio into a battlefield. At the same time, the US government sends its most unstoppable weapon, Luke Hobbs, a federal agent who never fails and never let criminals escape. Now three forces collide, Dom's crew, a ruthless drug lord, and the law itself. And the city becomes the arena. If we talk about character and performance, first character is Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel. Dom is no longer just a stranger. In this film, he becomes a leader, a strategist, and a symbol of loyalty. His personality is calm, controlled, and deeply emotional. Everything he does is one for the one word family. Vin Diesel's performance is more mature and powerful compared to earlier films. And Brian O'Connor or Paul Walker. Brian struggles between two lives, the criminal world with Dom, the moral responsibility of his past as a cop. And Paul Walker gives one of his most human performances here. His character feels guilt, fear, love, and responsibility all at once. And if we talk about Luke Hobbs and Dwayne Johnson, this film introduced The Rock and his entry completely changes the franchise. Hobbs is physical dominant, emotionally controlled, and morally rigid. He doesn't care who you are. If you break the law, he comes for you. His presence adds real tension and realism to the action. And if we talk about Mia Toretto or Jordan Brewster, Mia represents emotional stability in a chaotic world. Her role becomes more serious and meaningful, especially as the story moves toward responsibility and future. And if we talk about action and direction, Fast 5 is famous because it balances action with clarity. Chase scenes are long but understandable. Hand to hand fights feel brutal. Gunfights are intense but not overdone. The camera doesn't confuse the audience, you always know who is chasing, who is escaping, who is it staying. And the final sequence is one of the most iconic scenes in action movie history. And if we talk about music and sound, the soundtrack mixes Latin beats, hip hop, electronic tension. This fits perfectly with the real settings and gives the film strong energy without overpowering scenes. And if we talk about themes of the movie, first, family over everything. This movie proves that family is not blood, it's loyalty. Everyone joins the final mission not for money alone but for love. And if the second thing is freedom, every character wants freedom from the law, from the past, from fear. The East is not greed, it's escape. And third is trust. Trust is risky but necessary. Without it, survival is impossible. And if we talk about cinematographer, graphy, bright daylight action, rare for action films, real action, minimal CGI compared to later sequels, and this makes Fast Five feel grounded and realistic even during extreme movements. And if we talk about why Fast Five is special, this movie united characters from previous films, expanded the scale of the franchise, introduced the TV's formula, and turned racers into elite criminals. It's the bridge between street racing and global mission. And if we talk about its box office and reception, its budget approx $125 million and its worldwide collection is over $626 million. Become the highest grossing Fast and Furious film at that time. And if we talk about its critic praised The Rock's performance, action choreography, and team chemistry. And this success saved and redefined the entire franchise. And if we talk about some interesting facts, Dwayne Johnson trained heavily for this role to appear physically dominant next to Vin Diesel. Many stunts were done practically, especially car chases. The vault scenes used real metal structure during filming. Fast Five is often ranked as the best movie in the entire franchise by fans, and this film officially shifted the series from racing to East action cinema. And if we talk about final verdict, Fast and Furious 5 is not just a sequel, it's a rebirth. It delivers a strong action, emotional stakes, memorable character, perfect pacing. It's the movie where the Fast franchise stopped being about cars and started being about brotherhood, loyalty, and survival. And, let's talk about more review of this. It's not loading, guys. Okay, if we talk about the turning point of the franchise, Fast 5 is not just another sequel, it's the moment where the entire identity of the series changes. Earlier films revolved around underground racing, rivalry, and ego. In this film, speed becomes secondary. What matters now is journey, unity, and survival. The movie treats racing as a skill, but not a goal. This shift allows the story to grow beyond its simplicity, lessons, and consequences. If we talk about Rio de Janeiro as a main character, Rio is not just a background. The city breathes danger, the crowded street of violence, corrupt police, criminal power structure. Everything feels unstable. The bright sunlight contrasts with constant heat, making danger feel closer rather than hidden. Unlike dark nighttime street races, most scenes happen in daylight, uh, showing that these characters can no longer hide. Every move is visible, every mistake is witnessed. If we talk about Dom's evolution as a leader, Dominic Toretto is in Fast 5 is no longer impulsive. He speaks less, he plans more, he watches carefully. Dom said something deeply. Speed can't defeat system, only people can. That's why he gathers a team inside instead of action uh, alone. Each member brings the skill, not just loyalty. Drum becomes more like a general than a wrestler. His strength is no longer muscle, it is trust. If we talk about Bryce's internal conflict, Brian O'Connor carries the emotional weight of the film. If we talk about Brian's eternal conflict, Brian O'Connor carries the emotional weight of the film. He is not running for excitement, he is running because he has crossed the line he can never fully return from. He once believed in love, now he believes in people. This inner struggle makes him the most human character in the movie. His fear is not depth, it's becoming someone who we can't recognize. This conflict quietly drives many of his choices. And if we talk about Hobbes, law with a face, look, Hobbes is not portrayed as evil. He represents order, but order without flexibility becomes literary. Hobbes does not chase people, he chases outcomes. Collateral damage doesn't concern him at first. This makes his character powerful but also dangerous. As the film progresses, reality forces him to confront the difference between legality and justice. This evaluation adds complexity rarely seen in action scenes. If we talk about violence with purpose, the violence in Fast 5 is not random. Every fight serves character development, and Dom versus Hobbes so two unstoppable belief colliding gunfights emphasizes charge rather than heroism. Chases show depression, not style, and action exists to move emotion, not just spectacle. And if we talk about the Heist Structure, the film carefully builds its final act, requirement, planning, testing, sacrifice, and execution. Each stage increases tension without revealing everything. The audience is kept guessing but never jumping. This creates satisfaction rather than shock, and the payoff feels earned. And if we talk about money as symbol or desire, if we talk about money as symbol or desire, the money is not greed, it represents closure. Freedom from running for pride, safety for family, and for the team, a clean break from survival mode. And the world is heavy not because of gold, but because of everything it carries emotionally. And if we talk about music and rhythm, the soundtrack blends Latin culture with intensity. Music never interrupts emotions, instead, it underlines movement. Footsteps in giants, silence after sound. Silence itself becomes silence itself becomes powerful in key moments. And if we talk about technical excellence, Many car stunts were done practically. Real vehicles were destroyed during filming, and the Walt used multiple versions for different shots. Justice League's Rover focused heavily on spatial clarity. Editing avoids shaky confusion, and the craftsmanship gives the movie longevity. If we talk about why fans call it the best, because it balances everything: action, emotion, humor, stakes, character growth. Later films become bigger, but few become tighter, and Fast Five understand the strength. If we talk about final meaning of the film, Fast Five is about one idea: you can't outrun your past, but you can face it together. The movie ends not with victory, but with breathing space, something these characters have not had in years. Freedom finally feels possible. It's loading eyes, it will take time. If we talk about when running becomes a way of life, by the time of this film begins, running is no longer an action, it's an identity. Dom and Brian don't run because someone is chasing them, they run because stopping means being cuffed by the weight of everything they have done. There is no home anymore, no safe place. only movement. This is why the film feels restless even in quiet moments. Characters relax even during conversations. Bodies stay alert, eyes scanning, instinct awake. Freedom has become temporary. And if we talk about beauty sitting on violence, Rio, Rio de Janeiro is bright, colorful, alive, yet underneath it's controlled by invisible hands. The film represents crime not as chaos but as organization. Money moves system, police become tools, street become marketplace of power. This setting teaches Dom an important lesson: you can't fight a system with peace alone. You must understand its structure. The realization shapes every decision afterward. If we talk about Dom's silence speaks louder than words. Dom talks less in this movie than any previous one because leadership is no longer about motivation. It's about certainty. In he speaks, people listen not because he demands it, but because his calm suggests survival. Panic dies around him. He doesn't promise success, he promises effort. And that honesty earns loyalty stronger than fear ever could. If we talk about Brian, the cost of choosing power over people over love, Brian's tragedy is quite. He didn't betray the law of money, he betrayed it for the connection. And connection always has consequences. And throughout the film, Ryan constantly weighs danger against responsibility, especially when future life becomes part of the equation. He is not afraid of that, he is afraid of repeating the cycle. And the eternal conflict gives emotional grounding to the action. If we talk about Hobbes, the myth of the perfect enforcer, Hobbes enters like a force of nature. He is built like certainty. He believes order must exist, and even if it crashes, individual beneath it. But Rio expresses a truth his badge never prepare him for. Sometimes the law protect criminals and sometimes criminals protect innocent. This realization fracture is identified not immediately but slowly, painfully. His evolution is not heroic, it's human. And if we talk about the team, broken people with special skills, each member of the crew represents something lost: trust, stability, belonging, purpose. They are not friends first, they are survivors. Only through the mission do they rediscover unity. Thus, the heist becomes therapy disguised as crime. And if we talk about action as emotional release, every chase release mortal tension. Every collision is frustration escaping, every crash is a year of pressure finally breaking loose. And this is why the action feels satisfying. It carries emotional weight, not just spectacles. And if we talk about the vault, a rolling consequence, the vault is not just metal, it's consequences dragging them on. If we talk about heavy, unavoidable, destructive, as it tears through the city, it represents everything they can no longer out. Their past, their crime, their choices. And dragging it means confronting it. Letting it go means surrender. They choose neither, they pull it forward. And if we talk about silence after chaos, one of the film's strongest elements is what happens after the noise. The stillness, breathing, dust, exhaustion, victory is not celebrated loudly. Because survival has taught them not to trust peace. And if we talk about why Fast 5 feels different even today, because it respects trusting. It knows when not to cut, when not to speak, when to let faces tell the story, let the films become louder. Fast 5 stayed grounded, that is why it endures. If we talk about final emotional truth, Fast 5 is not about cars, not about money, not even about crime. It's about finding one moment of stability in a life that never stops moving. And for this character, that moment is family. And if we talk about and not perfect, not legal, but real. If we talk about more about it, if we talk about when survival replaces things, at the beginning of the franchise, these characters had dreams, winning races, proving its strength, earning respect. My past 5 dreams are gone. There is no someday. There is only today without capture. That shift is tragic and the film never says it aloud. But it shows it everywhere in tired eyes, in pauses, movement, in conversations that avoid the future. Hope has become presence, a defeat of word. Movement as a psychological addiction. Running and change their brains. Stillness feel unsafe. Even moments of calm feel temporary, like silence past time. This is why character constantly reposition themselves. Scale surrounding, touch weapons, check exist. They no longer live in place, they pass through them. And if we talk about Dom's greatest fear is not prison. Dom doesn't fear prison with jail. He fears losing people because prison is a place loss is permanent. Every decision he makes is filtered through one question: will this protect my family or put them closer to harm? This is why he refuses health measures. If they do this job, it must end everything. No returns, no running, no loose ends. And if we talk about Brian represent this fragility of the future, Brian is the only one still thinking ahead that makes him vulnerable. He thinks about consequences that others avoid because thinking forward hurts. The film places him between two times, a past he betrayed, a future he hopes for. This tension gives emotional realism to the story. He is not fearless, he is responsible. Hobbes learn the most painful lesson. Hobbes believes strength equals rightness. Rio teaches him otherwise. He sees corruption wearing uniform. He sees innocence cuffed between criminal and law. He sees order fail. The moment he chooses conscience or commands, something inside him breaks. But something truer comes. He doesn't stop being strong. He learns when strength should bend. And if we talk about the crew as a temporary society, together the crew forms something bigger, a society without institution. No courts, no government, no protection, only trust. And trust is risky because better destroy everything. This makes every shared girl count, every knot matters. And if we talk about the East is a leap of faith, they don't know if it will work. They only know they can't continue living like this. The East is not confidence, it's desperation dressed as courage. And if we talk about the world as the weight of their race, dragging the wall should be symbolic whether intentional or not. It smashes buildings, breaks streets, walls, attentions, just like their lives have. They can no longer hide. If destruction follows them, they will face it openly. And if we talk about the movement after when it ends, there is no cheering, only breath. Because survival doesn't feel like victory, it feels like relief. Relief is quite here. If we talk about the meaning of family, family is not shown as happiness. It is shown as choice. Choosing to stay when escape is easier. Choosing people when safety demands isolation. Choosing loyalty when betrayal would simplify everything. That's how it defines the film. If we talk about final truth of Past 5, Past life is about one realization. You can run forever or you can risk everything once. They only choose once, and that choice changes everything. If we talk about more, it's still not loaded, guys. It will take too much time, I think. If we talk about the film, it's about people who no longer belongs anywhere. The most painful truth is far, far simple. These characters are homeless, not without houses, but without places where they truly belong. They can't return to a normal life. They can't trust institutions. They can't exist peacefully among ordinary people. They exist between worlds. This is why the film constantly shows them in temporary locations. Safe houses, garages, empty rooms, abandoned buildings. Nothing feels permanent because permanence is no longer allowed to them. And if we talk about why the film never slows completely, even in quiet scenes, something hums underneath. A sense that claim is borrowed. The movie avoids comfort on purpose. It never allows long happiness because happiness would feel dishonest to people who live under constant threat. Peace would feel false. So the film keeps breathing softly but urgently. And if we talk about Dom is carrying invisible grip, Dom lost more than he lost the right to normal peace that gives never explode. It settles. You see in the way he stands apart. He knows he in how he watches other laugh, but doesn't join immediately. In how responsibility has replaced joy. Leadership becomes his coping mechanism. If he keeps everyone safe, maybe the loss will mean something. If we talk about Brian represent what could still be saved, Brian is the emotional unproven. counterweight. Freedom represents acceptance of loss, crime represents resistance to it. He still believes life can be rebuilt. That belief makes him hopeful and terrified. Hope hurt more than hopelessness, and because hope can be taken away. The real enemy is exposure, not realities, not the police, not even mobs. If you talk about the true enemy is being seen, being recognized, being remembered, being traceable. That's why the character constantly shifts identity, vehicles, location. Visible equals vulnerability. Why trust is the only currency. It's about saying this is who we are now, not racers, not fugitives, not victims, actors, decision makers, people who choose their ending instead of waiting for it. And the world is the moment they stop hiding. Dragging it through the city is public, loud, impossible to ignore. For the first time, they stop running quietly. They make the world look at them. It is dangerous but honest. And if we talk about why the ending feels calm instead of triumphant, because triumphant belongs to heroes. These characters are survivors, and survival doesn't shout; it exhales. The ending doesn't feel like a win; it feels like permission to breathe again. The film deepest message: freedom is not innocence. Freedom is acceptance. Acceptance that you can't undo the past, but you can decide what it means. First time is about reclaiming authorship of your life, not erasing mistakes, owning them. If we talk about final silence, when the movie ends, it doesn't ask you to cheer. It asks you to understand that sometimes family is not the people who makes life easy, but the people who makes life survivable. And let's talk about more. Is it Lord? No, it is still Lord. If we talk about Fast and Furious 5, 2011, if we talk about the film is about choosing to exist, most people live inside system. Most people live inside system, laws, routines, expectations, permission. These characters live outside permissions. They no longer ask life what is allowed. They ask only one thing: what must be done to keep going? That is not rebellion. That is survival philosophy. Running is no longer escape, it is identity. At first running is a reaction, later it becomes instinct. By fast five, it becomes identity. They don't ask if they will run. They ask how. Movement replaces stability. Speed replaces safety. That is why cars matter not as machines, but as actions of instinct. The car is the one place where chaos makes sense. And if we talk about why do feels even silent, Dom is not quiet because he lack one. He is quiet because words no longer change outcome. Experience has taught him that action speaks faster. He has buried enough grief to understand that explanation is useless. Protection is the only language left. If we talk about the cruel truth about leadership, Leadership doesn't elevate you, it isolates you. Everyone looks to them for answer, but no one carries his weight. If we talk about, he must choose. He choose who risk their life, who stays back, who goes backward. Leadership means surviving with guilt, and guilt accumulates silently. Brain represents the pain of still caring. Brain still cares about morality that makes him fragile. Brain still cares about morality that makes him fragile. Caring means hesitation. Hesitation means yet without caring, survival becomes hollow. Brain is a reminder that if they lost their humanity, freedom will mean nothing. If we talk about hope is what society creates, hobby is not cruel. He is efficient. Society rewards efficiency, but efficiency ignores nuance. Review forces him to see nuance for the first time, and it shakes him more than any gunfight. Because it justifies isn't clean, then certainty collapses. The crew is not a team, it's refuse. They do not gather of glory, they gather of relief from isolation, relief from fear, relief from pretending to be normal. Together they can breathe, alone they suffocate. The heat is their statement to the world. Not we want money, but we refuse to die slowly. They choose one moment of extreme risk over endless days of quiet fear. That is not recklessness, that is dignity. If we talk about the world is their past made visible, dragging it through the city forces consequences into the open. They stop hiding damage. They acknowledge it only by confronting it can they move forward. And we talk about why the ending feels peaceful. Because for the first time they are not being This not by police, not by criminals, not by themselves. Peace doesn't come from victory, it comes from pause. If we talk about the final meaning of fast five, fast five is not about crime, it's about choosing your own ending when life refuses to give you one not clean, not moral, not perfect, but chosen. And choice is freedom. Let's talk about more. If we talk about the architect of the film, when the movie finishes, you don't feel excitement, you feel calm, a strange calm, like after surviving something dangerous. Your body relaxes before your mind understands why. That is because the film carries tension almost constantly. And when it releases it, your nervous system follows. Few action films do that. Why the film feels honest? If we talk about because nothing is easy. Every solution creates another problem. Every escape leads to another stage. Every action costs something. The film doesn't reward a character. It permits them to continue. That really makes the story believable even when the action becomes large. The characters do not become heroes, they are not celebrated, they are not praised, they are. simply allowed to live again. And sometimes that indicated here, life gives the quiet sadness within the ending. Even in freedom, something is missing. They can't return to who they were. They have changed too much. Freedom does not restore innocence. It only gives space. That small sadness is why the ending feels mature. Why, if you talk about why the movie stays with you, because it mirrors something everyone at some points runs from mistake, from expectation, from fear. Fast 5 doesn't judge that instinct, it understands it. And then it asks one question: how long can you run before you must decide who you are? If we talk about the hidden comfort of the film, despite chaos, explosion, and dangers, the movie offers comfort. Not because things are safe. If we talk about, but because no one faces danger alone, that idea resonates deeply. The meaning of family, finally. Family is not perfection, it's not peace. It is presence, someone standing beside you when escape is possible. But abandonment would be easier. That is the film's emotional anchor. The final emotional truth. If we talk about the past, five ends with something real in action cinema. Not dominance, not victory, but relief. The relief of having chosen, of having acted, of having survived together. Why past five endured? Because speed fades, effect age, distance equal. But the feeling of being chased by life and wanting one moment to breathe never disappears. That feeling is timeless. Final line unspoken by the film. We didn't win, we just live it. And sometimes that's enough. Let's talk about more about it. It's learning, guys, so it will take little time. If we talk about Fast and Furious 5, the space between heartbeats, after everything is done, what remains is not the money, it's the silence, not empty silence, but the kind that follows danger when your ears are still ringing and your body has not yet released its survival. That silence exists all through this film, hidden between engine roars and gunshots. You can see it in the way characters pause before speaking, in the way they look at each other stronger than necessary, in the way laughter feels careful, like it might break if pushed too hard. And if you are living without permission, none of them are allowed to live ordinary lives anymore. They don't wake up with plans. They wake up with awareness of exist, of threats, of how fast everything can collapse. That awareness never turns off. Even love happens cautiously, even trusted is measured. If we talk about why the film feels real, they don't talk about emotions, they act around them. A glance, a reflex reassurance, a nod replaces a promise, a shared risk replaces word. Because in their world talking about feeling doesn't protect any action does. The arm's strength is control of fear. The arm is not fearless, he is controlled. Fear exists, but he decides where it goes. He carries it so others don't have to. That is the quiet tragedy of leadership. The strongest person absorbs the most fear. If we talk about brain, is the fragile center. Brian still believes tomorrow can be better. That belief trusts him, but it also keeps everyone human. Without Brian, the group could easily become numb. He reminds them that survival is not enough. Life must still mean something afterward. If we talk about the city never sleeps because danger doesn't. And if we talk about Rio never fails safe, even beautiful moments feel temporary. That tension seeps into the wear. You don't relax, you wait. Just like the characters too. The heist is a movement of decision, not courage decision. The decision to stop reacting and start choosing. That single shift changes everything. That single shift changes everything. And if we talk about the world isn't sound, it's really as it passes through streets something else breaks through. Years of pressure, years of hiding, years of fear, years of fear, destruction becomes cathartic, messy, violent, and necessary. If we talk about afterward, no one celebrates loudly. Because celebration belongs to people who feel safe, they don't, they simply breathe. And breathing feels enough. Why the film feel, why the film feels harder than it is. Because it understands fatigue, not physical fatigue, existential fatigue, the tiredness of living an alert too long, the desire to stop running without knowing where to stop. That exhaustion makes the film beyond its genre. What Fast Five ultimately says, not everyone gets redemption, some people only get relief, and relief can still be beautiful. If you talk about the last feeling, when the film ends, it doesn't lift you up, It lets you down gently, like placing something heavy on the ground after carrying it too long, and that is why it stays with you. And if we talk about more, it's loading, guys. So you have to make a little wait. It's loading, guys. So you have to wait. Little wait. It's nothing taking time. I apologize for it. If we talk about fast and furious, when the run stops, there is a moment never shown on screen, even everything is over, no sirens, no engines, no order shouted. Just air. That moment is what the entire film moves toward. Not freedom, not relief, not recreation. And if we talk about the cost of always being ready, living on the run changes the body, your shoulders stay tight, your mind never fully rests, your sleep is light. The film shows this without dialogue. Characters sit instead of lie down, they stand never close. They react before they think, and if we talk about the readiness becomes reflexes, and reflex becomes identify. We talk about why the film feels heavy but comforting, and if we talk about because it doesn't lie, it doesn't pretend it still feels good. Its strength hurts, being responsible hurts, protecting protecting others cost protecting other cost parts of yourself you never get back. Yet the film says nothing quietly kind. You you don't have to carry it alone. if we talk about family is a shared weight. Family is not warmth here, it's a distribution, pain divided among many soldiers. Fear is spread thin enough to survive. That's why the bond feels real, not romanticized. Dom's, if we talk about Dom's real victory, Dom doesn't win by escaping. He wins by stopping the spiral, by choosing an end instead of endless motion. He does not defeat enemies and he defeats inevitability. If we talk about Brian's peace is fragile, and that's okay. Brian's happiness is careful. He, he does not celebrate loudly because loud joy invites lots. His peace is quiet because he understands how easily peace breaks. That realism makes it believable. If we talk about a city witness everything, Rio watches the if we talk about the streets remembers the destruction lingers. The film never suggests chaos disappear cleanly. Freedom comes freedom comes with damage and message is accepting. If we talk about why the ending doesn't feel like closure, because life rarely gives closure. It gives pause, moments between storms. First five ends in a pause, not a conclusion. That honesty make it powerful. If we talk about the final understanding, the movie doesn't say everything will be okay. It says for now you can breathe. If we talk about, and sometimes that is the most merciful promise life makes. And if we talk about why you keep waiting, it doesn't end, it releases slowly, like waking something intense and needing time to set up. That's why I said, let's talk about more. It's loading, guys. It will take time. If we talk about Fast and Furious 5 2008, the moment after survival. When danger leaves, it doesn't disappear suddenly, it fades like a sound moving farther away. Your body stays tense even when your mind knows it's safe. That's where the film truly lives, in that delay between threats and relief. If we talk about survival, sleep, echoes, even after escape, sometimes remains inside the habit of checking behind you. The instincts are to calculate agitation before trusting calm, and the movie understands that survival rewrites people. You don't return to who you were, you become someone new. Peter sharper, older. If you talk about why nobody talks about the future, notice how little they discuss tomorrow. Not because they lack hope, but because hope has bettered them before. The future feels fragile. So they live small, one day at a time. That's not weakness. That is wisdom earned through loss. And if we talk about Dom's stillness is not peace, it's acceptance. Dom finally stops moving not because he's sick, because he is tired, tired of reacting, tired of chasing, tired of deciding under pressure. Acceptance is not surrender, it's choosing not to fight what can't be undone. If we talk about Brian learns, well, as a different kind of strength, Brian's strength becomes gentler, not kind that wins fight, the kind that builds something afterward. If we talk about his courage from action to care, that transfer is kind but essential. And if we talk about a team exists without needing a mission, for the first time they sit together without a plan. No blueprints, no courtyard, no urgency, just presence. This that moment is rare and precious. And if we talk about why the film never feels empty, if we talk about because meaning fills the space between words, long looks, short smiles, relaxed shoulders. The movie trusts the audience to feel instead of being told. And if we talk about what the film whispers, it whispers, it whispers something many, it whispers something many people need to hear. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You can rest, even if tomorrow is uncertain. Rest is still allowed. If we talk about the true ending happens, we talk about true ending happens off screen, not when credits rolls, but when the body exhales, when the mind stops scanning, when the tension loosens. That's the ending the film gives. And if we talk about why this story feels endless, because it meets with us real life. We don't close chapter cleanly, we drift into the next moment. First five drift softly instead of stopping. Let's talk about more. If we talk about Fast and Furious 5 2011, staying with the silence after the engine stops, something unheard appear space, not freedom space, and space to take, space to feel weight drop from the chest, space to notice how tired the body really is. And the film never shows this directly, but it lets you feel it. And if we talk about the body, remembers even when the danger is over. If we talk about musical, don't relax immediately. Hands still tense around nothing. Eyes still search for emotion. That is what living on the run does. It teaches the body lessons the mind can't unlearn. First, I understand this. It doesn't pretend survival reset you, it changes you. If we talk about why the calm feels tense, peace feels foreign, almost suspicious. Character don't celebrate loudly because uh, celebration invites vulnerability. Joy when you have suffered long enough becomes something you approach carefully, like touching warm water after being cold too long. If we talk about Dom finally stops listening for silence, not because he's sure they won't come, but because he accepts that if they do, he'll face them. That acceptance is stand deeper than speed. Brian learns to breathe again, not fully, just enough to smile without fear, enough to imagine mornings, enough to believe life might continue. That small belief is powerful. And if we talk about together without urgency, not countdowns, no signals, no strategy. Just people sharing air. That's when family truly exists. Not in crashes, but in calm. The city moves on. Rio continues. People walk. People walk. Lights. Life doesn't pause for their story that contrasts human as something quiet and true. The world keeps going even when you almost stop. And if we talk about the film's soft mercy, Fast Five shows mercy not by fixing everything but by allowing rest. That alone is generous, and If we talk about why you don't want to this, and if we talk about more, and if we talk about Fast and Furious 5 running along quite after this film. When something violent finally ends, silence doesn't arrive immediately, it approaches carefully. Like it's afraid to disturb or survive. This is emotional space. This film settles into not drift, not joy, but a gentle lowering of tension that has lived too long inside the body. You feel it before you understand it. If we talk about living too long in emergency mode, for the for most of the film, every character exists in emergency mode. Decisions are fast, voices are short, emotions are postponed because emergency modes uh, doesn't allow reflections. You survive first, you feel later. Fast five reaches the moment where your letter finally arrives and it's overwhelming. If we talk about the when the body finally catches up, the mind may accept safety before the body does. That's why stillness feels uncomfortable. That's why character is sit quietly, unsure what to do with their head. They are no longer reacting, and reaction has been their identity without danger. Who are they? So it was the review of this movie, and goodbye. Thank you.